Ishra Gill is a brand and marketing leader who partners with founder-led digitally native consumer brands to drive meaningful growth. She operates at the intersection of brand, consumer insight, and modern commerce, while doing her best to live a life where wellness is the foundation across work, truly living, being a present mom, and family logistics. Ishra, welcome to ThinkSpace.
Thanks.
Family logistics is so you.
So me. I think working in marketing prepared me for motherhood and household operations and family operations.
How are you feeling in this stage of motherhood?
My son is about to turn 4 in a couple weeks. And so I think it's a little bit bittersweet in a sense because it really hits you that time does go by so fast. I always said when I became a parent that all those kind of cheesy cliches out there are so in fact true. And it's like this stage is kind of going to be coming to an end soon. So it's, you're so proud to see your little one grow up, but at the same time, it's sad because you can't rewind time.
It's like when they're younger, you're their whole world. And then now you're becoming a part of their big world. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have so much more happening in his life, which is so cool. But I can only imagine what that feels like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see it all unfold. And I think that we really try to cultivate a relationship of best friends, me, my husband, our dog, and my son, but also being the people that are guiding him. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy at the end of the day, in terms of a child's brain, when it's developing, how much they're building that trust in you as their adult that is guiding them and the influence and all the different things. I think that I've gone into parenthood with a very particular way. And there's probably a lot of things that I'm actually more rigid than one would recognize about it. And I have very firm reasons as to why. And it might not work for all other people or people that are around us. And I think that's one thing in parenthood. We have a very big circle of family and friends and everyone's parents. And it's a part of our blessing at the end of the day because there's so many people around us with kids. We're all in the same boat together. But out of all of those people and all those family units, there's not one family unit where they're identical to the next. So everyone's lives are so different, whether they are living with, other generations like in-laws or parents or whatever that looks like, or living independently on their own, or maybe they actually don't have family nearby, right? There's not a single family unit where it's directly apples to apples and exactly the same.
Well, what did that give you as a person, right? To be a young woman who now has a family and who is recognizing that everyone's family and life is different. What did that do for you as an individual and how you approach living your life as a mom?
Yeah, I think that also in parenthood and motherhood specifically, it can also come with a lot of judgment because to be honest, I don't know why exactly, right? It's they're doing things a particular type of way and either you're influenced by it in a positive way or for some reason you feel I'm not doing enough. And I think as a parent or as a mom, oftentimes you can always feel that sense of I'm not doing enough, but you just have to meet yourself with ease at the end of the day. But for me, in terms of how I show up amongst all the different, parent friends and whatnot that I have is to just essentially be judgment free and check myself sometimes too, because at the end of the day, it's just recognizing everyone's lives are different.
Yeah. Okay, random thing that's coming up for me, such a different direction than I was going to originally take this conversation. But so I read online that kids' nervous systems are built from the outside in. So essentially how you regulate and how you regulate with them is how they start to build and develop.
Co-regulation.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so how has that experience been like?
It's really hard.
Yeah.
My brain after motherhood changed and continues to be a little bit different this way, but I'd say it's softened a bit. So there is definitely for me and in my postpartum journey. So you may have heard before, a lot of people day 4 within the first 6 weeks or whatever, they get these drops in hormones. I didn't get any of that. But for me, I actually had more a postpartum rage appear around month 9. And for me, it was really jarring because I had settled a lot of that through, I used to be a little bit scrappier in my younger days with reason, but I settled a lot of that through wellness, through meditation, all that kind of stuff. I also prepared for postpartum knowing that it can be a wild ride. So
the girl who says in her bio, family logistics. Of course she prepared for it.
And so that piece is like really hard, and it can be like, I almost don't recognize myself sometimes when it comes up, but also it's so common. Like I've heard it across my other friends. It's just like, you just snap like in the moment or whatever. Like these children, honestly, like they push you, right? My son is very strong-willed. He's a strong-willed, sensitive boy. And so he pushes me, but that's also what the child's brain is doing. So I do my best sometimes, just simply something like, hey, let's take 3 deep breaths together. And as much as like I'm trying to get him to take the deep breaths, like I need those deep breaths too. But it can be very difficult in the moment. So
how has your like practice with grace like that? Because I love the way that you said that. I was scrappier in my younger days. I'm totally stealing that. But like, how have you given yourself grace and compassion through this experience and through when you do have to regulate yourself as an individual too?
So another thing that's really important is repair. And it's funny because I had that conversation with like just an adult yesterday in the business, setting. Everyone's going to mess up. You as a parent, you're always going to mess up. And as long as you always come back to repairing, that's what actually changes and settles like in that child's brain in terms of, okay, yeah, my mom got mad or whatever, but they came back and they had that acknowledgement in terms of, I got really frustrated and I'm here to say sorry. And even when I'm angry or you're frustrating me, I still love you. So that repair piece is absolutely critical.
Yeah, I just learned about this the other day or a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, I love the way that this is said. Okay, so changing gears a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't remember exactly how we met, but there's this memory that I have of you. I don't even know if you remember it. I was on this leisurely walk, okay? And I was by the Hotel Georgia, and I just see this little brown girl running. Hi, Summan! And she runs by me. Like, what the fuck?
Hotel
and then you
Georgia.
turn around and you're like, talk to you later. And I'm like, this is your energy. It's like you're just running from one thing to the next, and you're just like,
I don't remember that.
Exactly. And you're just in a good vibe. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like since I've met you, you are a person that I feel like just loves learning. You love expanding. You love learning more. You are curious. You love people. Like, where did your journey begin in the sense of like your professional journey, and what got you into marketing? Like, why did you choose this?
Okay, well, funny story. I actually graduated high school, top marketing student, 2005 or whatever that was. Yeah. And I don't know how, because I didn't go to school like half of grade 12, I think. Like the teacher really liked me, perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some things that, happened during that time that for sure like catapulted me, but really my first steps into marketing was I was 19 years old. I was actually going to fashion school. The front desk receptionist worked at the Beat 94.5, still continues to be like a friend in my world to this day. And I started working at the Beat, the front desk, while also being on the Beat Street Squad. And I would just, in the 3 to 4 years that I was there, try to absorb and learn absolutely as much as I could. So there were some days where like I would work the front desk, then I would go do a shift for like the Beat Street Squad. They don't come back at night because they were doing remotes from the club, and I would be like the one back at the station until 2:00 in the morning, like hitting the buttons, making sure the commercials like were going out right and all that kind of stuff. And then I was also doing like on air, sometimes cut-ins or like pre-recorded things that were running. And I did that for 3 or 4 years, like 19 until about 23, I want to say. And it was like a time in my life for sure.
Like, what did you want to do at that time?
I thought at that time that I would be in fashion journalism, but then it really clicked in fast that one, there's like not a strong journalist and media type environment in Vancouver. Obviously so different now. It was different back then. And same thing with being in fashion. Like, if you want to work in fashion, you got Aritzia or Lululemon. Like, we just don't have big companies here in that same way that you do in other markets. And I did consider moving at the time too. But that evolved eventually. And also something for me, like, I really analyze what I'm in and do I really love it? Is it something that I want to be in all the time? Or do I not? And I'm also very open-minded to trying something new. And I think that serves me now 20 years later because I am quite agnostic across different brands. I don't necessarily need to be just in CPG and food and bev. I can do lifestyle home goods. Right now, I'm focusing a lot on a brand that's, in the jewelry and accessory space. So it's served me and it keeps things interesting.
So what are some of those things that you soaked up at the Beat 94.5?
Yeah, there was a really strong woman leader that was the head of the promotions department, and she really cemented in terms of like organization, strong communication. You're working with a lot of different personalities, personalities that, you know, they have a lot of attention on them, a lot of different things. And so I think there was like a hustle and hard work, but also just building relationships. And again, like some of those people are people that are my friends 20 years later now.
I think that I know that you have that hustle to this day. And I think that that's something that you can't teach people. They either, like, of course you can teach them and tell them, but you either have hustle or you don't. And if you're saying that, you know, you're starting early and then you're working all day and then you're coming in late, like there's an innate drive within you that obviously loves to do, like, make things. So where did you go after the radio show?
Yeah, after that, while I was working in radio at the same time, I was like freelance writing, started write for newspaper outlets. Remember back then you could get 24 hours newspaper and stuff like at the SkyTrain station. Yes. So I was writing for outlets like that and a couple magazines and things. And that was also the start of where like digital websites and blog world was coming up. So I was doing a lot of that work with like some popular fashion websites. And then I really wanted to not pigeonhole myself into fashion and beauty. And so I went and worked agency side. And when you're working agency side, it's a whole different ball game, obviously. And that's another place where you really cement your skills. And I always say to anybody who's like looking to get their foot in the door, just starting in marketing, go work agency side, because you'll learn the chops that you need to learn and know things about like, you know, like what it looks like to truly cross your T's and dot your I's and be 110% that you won't necessarily get at other places. Some of those things? Working with creative directors, processes, how to communicate, how do you influence, right? I think there's been times where I've had to be taught humility because, you know, I'm probably not aggressive, but I'm like, get shit done. Everybody doesn't always get that. And I've definitely been told that like I'm direct as an example, but at the end of the day, it's just one business. We're not doing open heart surgery. And so you have to be able to distinguish between the two and understand that when you're working in a company and or for clients, whatever that looks like, you're attached to goals and outcomes, right? So I think it's a little bit different now where generationally, like things have changed and whatnot, but back then it was a little bit more cutthroat too, right? So
yeah, and there was a lot of mindset back then. I would assume also as a woman of color, where it feels like, oh, this is only one place for me, and if I don't have this spot, then will other people have this spot?
Yeah, oftentimes even to this day, like I think we've had this discussion before, like I am the only woman of color like in a particular room or space. It's, you know, it's diversified now for sure, but it still continues to happen sometimes, and it's not like completely lost on me. Or just, you know, the world, like, you know, working in the corporate world, there's a lot of ego and things like that. And the number of times where like, you know, I have someone who's like more of a middle-aged person or senior to me just in age, telling me I have to soften myself in some way, shape, or form. But then on the flip end, that's not happening to, you know, a person of identifying as a different sex or whatever that looks like. But why am I getting that feedback? Like, I'm just trying to get to the same outcomes as you.
Yeah. You know what it kind of makes me wonder is, what is your opinion on, okay, because online there's so much rhetoric around 9 to 5. And it's like, oh, like 9 to 5 sucks and this and that. You've done both. So like, what is your take on people who have 9 to 5s versus entrepreneurs versus freelancers? Like, what's your take?
I think it was different before. I think there's a time and a place. Like if you want to be an employee or traditional 9 to 5er for a particular reason. And some people just function better with that structure too, right? Like each person is so different at the end of the day. Some people just know where they need to show up and where they need to go and get their paycheck and be like out the door. Obviously, if like you're a freelancer or somebody like myself, I operate as my own business when I'm working with other brands. You have to be down with doing the accounting or like hiring an accountant and knowing how the taxes work and billing on time and like all those different things. That's just not cut out for some people. So those are things that you have to take into consideration. When you are fully as an employee, I don't think there's like a downfall to it necessarily, but I think that as you begin to look at your life and evaluate different things, what are you trading your time for? And I think that at the end of the day, time is a luxury. As you become a parent, that becomes even more important. There's not enough time to go around, and how you're spending your time becomes even more important. I think in North America, the construct is that like work, save for your retirement, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, when all that money is sitting there and I've saved up for my retirement, am I going to have an able body to be able to enjoy that? Or is my time going to be gone? If I am in a privileged enough position to be able to do that right now and have balance and all those different types of things, then why not? Right. And so that circles back to, I've obviously in my earlier years, like truly freelanced. I've been an employee. And right now I'm kind of in this blend of the best of both worlds. So I operate as my own company, Ishra Gill Strategy, and then I work with brands on either a project basis or sometimes going in a little bit deeper on a fractional basis. And I really like this one. I think it's like the exact right sweet spot. I love that I get to go in and work with brands for what they need, very particular, whether it's like a campaign or solving a bigger business problem. And then I know exactly when to get out.
Tell me more. Like, what do you, like when you know when to get out, how do you know?
I think sometimes it can be a bunch of different things. It's not oftentimes just one thing. But I think that one reason why I have been successful in this in the past few years, I work directly with founders and CEOs, is that I can be a clear voice for them. I have a founder operator level mindset, and I have a lot of experience at bigger companies that is really beneficial to companies that are of a little bit of a smaller size. But I can come in and be like that voice of reason from both a brand and higher business level standpoints, like really looking at the P&L and seeing where those opportunities are. And oftentimes they need that. A lot of times also some founders and CEOs, they haven't done this before. This is like the first business that they've started. They themselves may have not been overly experienced or too experienced in, being at a different company where they've learned like all the different things that they're going to go apply. That doesn't apply across every founder CEO. That's just some. But that's why you hire people that have that knowledge and be able to like leverage them to be able to help grow the thing that they're trying to grow.
Yeah. And I think that the goal is that you can leverage them and that you can put them into the right space. But then I'm very curious, because you're such an intuitive person. How have you found that experience as an individual? Because I think sometimes when people put people in places to execute, there's also the role of ego, right? Well, does she know more than me? But that's why I'm hiring her.
Yeah. Well, just to make sure I answer the previous question too, like, for example, there was a brand that I worked with last year, and right away, like, I can just, as you start to work with them, you can see the gaps and like what's missing. And it's all about making a recommendation in terms of what you think is going to be the best for that business and the stage that they're at. I know what I'm really good at and I know what I'm not good at. And so I can really clearly identify that for people and say, this is what you do need, and make that recommendation. Ideally, you've built the trust with the founder CEO that they take your recommendation. So far, it's going well that those recommendations do pan out. So, there was a brand I worked with last year. They really liked working with me, but I was like, I'm not what you guys need. You need like this level of a person, in your business day in and day out. I also can't offer that, right? Because I refuse to be an employee, essentially. And they took my recommendation. They brought a person in. I connected them with the person to hire the right person. And, they love that as well. So it's about adding that value and steering them in the right direction. It's really working out well for them right now. And while I might not be a part of, everything that's coming to life, I know that this result that's happening right now is because of that recommendation. And that's ultimately when you're at this really strategic level and being that right hand to the founder CEO, it's what value are you giving at the end of the day? Yeah.
And it's also like a lot of self-trust for you to also, to know, you sound like you're in a place where you can say no.
Very much so. Yeah. And I think that's something that's come as a result of building over all the years, maybe being stupider or more naive in previous years. Where you're at in your 20s is not going to be the same as like where you're at in your 30s if you've been building over time, right? And for me, I very much, and like anyone that I work with and team members that I work with, I always say, even with business, date before you marry. And I do that with any of the brands and the people that I work with. So I'll typically, anytime I kick off a new project, I will do, a shorter time frame, and I date and see what the waters are like before I commit to something bigger. But going back to the ego piece, I always look to work with, at the end of the day, good people. If the vibe isn't there for me, I'm out. And that's
how do
okay
you
with
build
me.
that? Because I know you and I also have had many conversations about wellness, right? But like, how did you build that?
Getting to a place where
just that trust within yourself, or that knowance of like, hey, the vibe is off, so I don't want to play here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be different things. Sometimes businesses are just in a particular level where they need like XYZ, and that could be they just need a lot of like their team at that time. And I know I only have this much to give. So that's one, check, that's not going to work out. It could be like a personality conflict sometimes, right? That just happens. It's natural. There's so many personalities. It's like a long list oftentimes that I'm going through. And again, that's why I do a shorter time frame sometimes, so that I can really evaluate it. And it takes time, right? To be able to get to know the people that you're working with, what the needs of the brand are, what's the cycle that they're going through, what are they trying to achieve? And also it can be so different. Like some brands are experiencing growth, some are experiencing challenges, some need like stabilization. Some brands are raising funds. Like it's never the exact same thing. And so just being able to kind of put a lens to it and understand like, what is it that they need? And am I the right person or not? And is this clicking for us or not? And even if it's not me, I always make a recommendation in terms of here's what I do recommend and who's going to work best for you.
Okay. Understanding the marketing landscape in such a, I always say like, I feel like you're a marketing scientist. Like I know you love creative as well, but I feel like people who understand the science of marketing and the numbers of marketing, I can very clearly tell when it's like, oh, you need a painter versus you need a scientist. And knowing what you know, like let's say that there's a brand, and like a lot of people who are listening to this podcast, they have their own companies. They are probably a little bit more in the earlier phases of their company. And if they were to focus on one or two things when it came to their brand or the marketing, what would you tell most people to focus on, like no matter what?
Data and knowing your customer. Obviously so different than, starting out 20 years ago. But your customer at the end of the day, well, actually three things. Your product. Your customer is everything at the end of the day. Like really listen to them, know them. Who are they? What motivates them? Why are they shopping? Where do they live? What do they look like? What are their friends like? Who are the people they surround themselves? Like you need to know your customer. Period. Doesn't matter like what category you're playing in. Know your customer very, very well. There's so many tools now for us to be able to gather data and leverage that data in order to target, in order to build acquisition, in order to reach the people where they are. Leverage that data to inform your decisions and make sure your data is clear, make sure it's accurate. No one's going to be buying your product at the end of the day if it's not strong and if it's not working or if they don't like it. And that goes back to like listening to the customer. So if it's something that's like a consumable food and beverage, for example, that doesn't taste good, no one's going to come back to purchase it again, right? I think nowadays there's a lot of things with product where like, sometimes it's manufactured in such a way to have a short lifespan because the company wants you to come back and to purchase it again. Again, it ranges based on the type of product, but you want to make sure that one, like customers love what it is that you're selling, that they're coming back to you again and again. In today's digital marketing landscape, it's very expensive to be able to constantly be acquiring new customers. You want to make sure people are coming back to you, and they're only going to come back to you if the experience is strong, the experience with the brand, and at the end of the day, with the product itself.
I feel like one of the things that I respect about you the most is that you're such a diligent shopper. You are the type of person who is, I feel like if you like something, you like it a lot. And if you don't like something, you don't like it at all. And to be that kind of customer, like how has that impacted, like how has all your knowledge around marketing impacted how you shop?
It's really difficult because I can see through everything, right? For example, right now I'm trying to test BCAAs, or sorry, I'm switching from BCAA to EAA so I can get the complete amino chain when I'm doing all my workouts and recovery and everything. And the one that I like is like never available in Canada. So then I like quickly picked up something from Supplement King or whatever it may be. And I still read through the ingredients because I'm so picky about the ingredients. Again, things that I've learned along the way, right? And then there's another one that I tried that's like from the US, but it's so hard to ship it here and yada, yada, yada. And it's really difficult because I'm like, hey, I liked the taste of this thing over here and it worked really well, but I know that I need the better thing over here, but I actually just can't find the right product. And so it's really hard. And that's sometimes where light bulb moments go off too. I'm like, should I start a BCAA brand? I'm like, no, I should not. Right. But it's, just so tricky. And so for example, as I'm going through this, I'm like, I just need samples. Right. And I'm like, if these different brands made it easier to get a sample, which I already know having worked on that side, it's so hard to create samples, especially from an online perspective, right? And sampling distribution is like such a huge thing too. But I'm like, this would just make this a lot easier for me.
Yeah. And like that part right there is, as our life becomes more and more online, I am a person who I personally like going to stores and I like touching things. I like interacting with product before I buy it. So then when I buy things online, I notice, like, for example, there's this one store, I was interacting with it for 4 years before I ever bought something. And I'm just like, wow, like the value of a customer, you never know when they're going to shop with you. And you have to like appreciate customers at all scales, like the customer who's just like eating up your free content, as well as the person who's like pops in your DMs and is like, okay, I'm going to buy today.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And consumers are really finicky. Previously, it was that, maybe you could get somebody to purchase after like 2 to 3 interactions. Now, they say you have to interact with a customer about 7 times, but based on what the data is telling me, like I would say it's upwards, probably more around 12.
Yeah.
So that means you need to do more marketing, you need to be more top of mind, you have to do more retargeting, hitting all the different points of the funnel, and it's just more. Do
you think it's harder or easier to make a brand right now?
I think it's harder. I think a lot of people, it's actually, there's a lot more tools available that didn't exist, let's say 10 or 20 years ago. It's very easy at a younger stage of your life to, go open up a Shopify storefront, so on and so forth. But that's just the first stage of it. To keep it going, to keep it growing, all those different parts of it, that is a different beast. So it depends on like what type of a business do you want to have, or what type of a brand do you want to have. Do you want to have something that's just like you, very indie, you're packing and shipping from home, so on and so forth. And that's completely okay. There's like absolutely nothing wrong with it. But I think there's different stages of different brands. And, I get people a lot of times being like, oh, do you want to help so-and-so with like marketing and whatnot? And again, like going back to that, no, I'm like, that's not really what I do. I work very specifically with brands. And like over these past, I think almost 5 years now where I've worked for myself, but while working with other brands, I've also gotten in a place where I can really identify the size of brand that makes sense for myself to work with.
And what is that size?
Probably like 10, 20, 50 million. When you're starting to get to that 100, it's usually a bigger team. And right now I just don't have enough to give to be able to like fully oversee that size of a team. And I'm very comfortable and okay with that, but never say never. Maybe something changes in the next few years.
Yeah. I think you have to, especially when you get more knowledge, you really realize like, where do I love to play and where am I really effective? And something you said earlier was just like, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And you have to own it. Yeah. Right? Why do you think you love this so much? Because I can see it. Like I love talking to you about marketing and I love talking about customers and this and that because it's just so passionate. Why do you think you love this so much?
I think my brain is just built this way. I think it's just come to me naturally and my brain is built this way. I think I have a really strong understanding of consumer and consumer psychology, and I've learned that like over time. But you mentioned like, being like a marketing scientist or like whatnot. But for me, actually, in the roles that I'm in and everything that I do, it's many different parts. Like I have to do the creative piece. I have to do the analytical piece. There's the finance piece, which is connected to the analytical piece, but sometimes I like to parcel that out, separately. And so it is doing all of those pieces when you're leading a brand.
Okay. For a young creative or somebody, for a young creative who is just getting into this space, right? Let's say they've been in the space for 1.5 years, okay? What are some lessons that you've learned in navigating these different personalities, these different roles, that you would impart wisdom onto that young creative?
Yeah. I mean, I say this to the team members that I work with all the time. There's two things. So always being solutions oriented. So I find oftentimes with people that are more junior in their careers, whether you're creative, whether you're, as a marketer, you're a creative person, but obviously you have dedicated creative roles as well. But always being solutions oriented. So, if there's a seemingly small problem, let's say coming up, instead of coming to, let's say it's your manager or the person that you're working with, or maybe you're working directly with a founder, don't come with the problem and come with the solution, because you're just going to get to the result that much quicker. And at the end of the day, whether you're trading your time for services as an employee, whether it's as a freelancer, your job is to solve that problem and keep it moving. So be the problem solver and come with a solution or a couple solutions. The other piece is that a part of marketing is a lot of wrangling at times, right? And that too. It's keeping everybody on the same page all the time, all the different moving pieces. And I have been called a good wrangler, but I actually don't like doing the wrangling all the time. It doesn't give me energy.
You are a good PM.
It doesn't give me energy though, right?
Fair.
I get good energy out of maybe a shoot day, seeing strong creative kind of in-person interaction. But sometimes a day of wrangling, I'm tired at the end of the day. I'm like, nobody else, please ask me another question. Don't ask me what's for dinner, right? My brain just can't take any more of it. But on that note, what I've learned along the way, and I think this was probably when I worked more in-house, is that if I can help other people's jobs be easier, then I'm in fact making my job easier. And so I always share that with the different team members. Before you send off that Slack, before you go propose a question, just really pause to be able to think, I need this thing. How do I make somebody else's job easier? And in turn, the thing that I need become, easier for me on an ongoing basis. And it takes time. I do a lot of coaching with people to be able to get there. But so
it's
far,
so collaborative, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think everyone knows how to be collaborative.
And so far, it seems to be working because I get a lot of feedback that, people have learned so much in a short period of time. And I also have had people that have followed me from brand to brand. So one thing that I actually feel like I've loved doing is assembling these dream teams of people, right? Having the retention person, having the marketing manager, having the social media person, so on and so forth. I love assembling a dream team, and it just feels so good.
Yeah.
Over the past few years too, I've loved the fact that I've predominantly been able to work exclusively with predominantly women teams or women founders. It's cool.
What's different
I like
about
the girl
women
vibes.
founders?
I think there's just a level of understanding, but again, not painting everyone with the same brush. I worked with not a woman founder last year, and he was so wonderful. So
okay, so switching gears a little bit to the wellness world.
Yeah.
Because when I originally had interviewed you for Identity of Wellness, that's what I knew that you did. You did mindfulness stuff. So how through this journey did mindfulness become a part of your world?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this question. You know what? I can take it back, funnily enough. Wellness for me, I think, did start a little bit in my teens. My mom would take me to GNC and we had chlorella in our fridge. I just don't think she was really imparting the knowledge enough, or at least my brain didn't have the space to take it in at that time. But for me, it has been small little steps and building blocks along the way. So going back to, I think I was 22 years old, what worked for me at that time, because again, this is not for everybody, everyone's different. I stopped having bread and milk. Having milk in my fridge when I became a mom for my child was weird. It was straight up weird. I was this is so weird. There's milk in my fridge, right? But that was kind of the first thing. I was these things aren't making me feel good. And I took them out. And then it continued to stack on there. I think that I didn't recognize it at the time. I've had a lot of complex trauma in my life as a child and growing up. It was how anxiety was forming and racing thoughts and things like that. And so I started to find movement as a way to be able to release that. I was learning how to work out.
And what was that? So it was fitness.
Yeah, I think it was learning to work out. So like working with trainers and things like that and properly learning to work out. I was just trying to move my body in different ways too, like whether that was spin or boxing. And you know me, like I do a bunch of those different things. So that was like then a part of it. Then again, it just like continued to stack. When I was working in agency, I'm like, I would always go to Ride Cycle Club. Like I do my like crazy work day and then I'd go to Ride Cycle Club like in the peak time of ride. And it just made me feel so good that like, you know, I sat down with Ashley Ander at the time and I was like, should I be a ride instructor? And I always like stop myself because I'm like, no, I don't want my passion thing to become my work thing. Right. But one thing back then, what to me was like, I just want to wear like Nike and Lululemon every single day to work. And that's how then I ended up being at Vega. And at that time, I learned so much about nutrition, not just from like a plant-based perspective, but just whole foods and like how that is actually the foundation to how you are fueling yourself and your nutrition. And ultimately, like there's a lot of better for you foods that are out there, but those are still packaged goods. Those are still at the end of the day processed, right? Like nothing is better than
an apple,
a banana, a carrot, spinach, right?
Did you have to learn how to cook with vegetables at that point?
I did not know how to cook. There was a time where I had to call my friend and I was like, how do I cook this chicken breast?
I love that. I love the honesty because,
I think
no one learns.
I'm pretty sure I think as a teenager, I blew up Lipton noodle soup. Like it caught fire. So where I have evolved and come to is a lot better. Like this week I meal prepped chicken vermicelli rice noodle bowls. And like, honestly, it looks fire. Like so good. I'm gonna send you a photo. And I was like, whoa, I would not have been able to do that like 15 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
that's so
but
fair.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
But I became really curious along the way. Again, like I was having a lot of anxiety in probably my mid-20s-ish. And I became really curious about meditation. This was pre-pandemic. And I just happened to bump into somebody where they were starting a meditation studio in Vancouver. And there wasn't one that existed. And I was really exploring all of this at the time. And there were ones in New York and LA, but there was nothing in Vancouver. So it just happened to be like all happening at the same time. And through them, it was Moment Meditation back then. It was like such a cool space in Gastown in that Dominion building. And I was able to get my training and get certified. And so those are just experiences that I, continue to take while still doing all my marketing work. But it was nice because I had opportunities to be able to guide meditation in real life. And I think for me, that is the one that I love the most. Like, I did some online things and whatnot, but having kind of a smaller, more intimate group, whether it's 5 to like maybe 45 people and like guiding meditation in person is a really cool experience.
Why?
Because I think you just see everyone's like comfort and discomfort. So it was interesting, like even at Vega, sometimes like during our annual sales meetings and things like that, I would get on the mic and like do a guided meditation. You could tell some people are more uncomfortable, but it was so funny because it's like some people who are like really high performers in terms of like fitness, but aren't taking that moment to just like sit and be with their breath and like calm their mind. I think also pre-pandemic, people had a misconception, and we like learned this obviously through actually that was post-pandemic, but in terms of the identity of wellness, but people have a misconception about what mindfulness and meditation can look like, right?
But being in the mindfulness space at that time must have been so interesting because you were in the mindfulness space when people really didn't understand it.
Yeah, I was told it was weird.
Yeah.
And that's
like,
fine.
They thought
I'm just
it was
like,
weird.
cool. Like, you can think that and then look what happens. And that's happened to me in so many different ways. I was wearing a dress and sneakers before everybody else was. And I think my own husband, not at that time, he was my husband, was like, what are you wearing? And I was like, okay, well,
it's going to be fashionable.
Look, it pans out.
Yeah. Okay. So how have you continued to utilize meditation or mindfulness into your day-to-day life now?
Obviously in motherhood, like sometimes if I can get up early enough, it's like just sitting and doing like a quick 5 minutes before starting the day. A lot of it is like just my breath, even coming in here beforehand, just taking those few deep breaths. I think a lot of it is in terms of how you speak, again, because I can be a very direct person in some cases and instances in order to be able to influence or just make sure people are feeling good. It's like, how am I speaking? How am I showing up? I'm probably a little bit more abrasive with like my husband. He's the one person I can be. It's like probably where there's a lack of mindfulness, but otherwise
there's always that one guy in every girl's life.
But otherwise, you know, for the most part, in terms of even just how I speak to my friends, right? Like, I think as women, so many of my friends are going through like motherhood, balancing careers, different, you know, family dynamics and things like that. And just being like a voice of ease and reminding them too that they can be. And also just like the wildness of womanhood, like giving birth, becoming pregnant, the postpartum, like have been in some insane situations and, you know, had to support others too. And it's just like coming back to that breath to be that constant and to guide you.
There's something I want to double click on. You've said it a few times, is that idea that the abrasiveness or this idea that you're direct, right? How have you metabolized that for yourself?
Honestly, there's some parts of me where like I'm just at an age where I don't give a fuck. Like I'm not going to be for everybody, and that's completely fine. And I think that comes back to the mindfulness piece and just recognizing I'm not a people pleaser and I never have been. And that's fine if like you are, and we all have our personalities like for a certain reason. But at the end of the day, like I'm not unkind. Right? So
yeah, and I ask because I feel like that's something I myself have navigated quite a bit, where it's like just because I am clear and direct does not mean that I am unkind. And I had to actually coach myself through that process of even getting to the point of me telling myself I am not unkind. And then, you know, life will always bring you your lesson in many different ways. I cannot tell you how many clients I have had in the coaching world who have come to me for similar things. Like, oh, how I'm perceived is really challenging for me. And it's like, okay, well, how can you get comfortable with yourself to then be okay with how okay or not okay with how people perceive you?
And being comfortable with yourself is a self-exploration. So part of my wellness stack and how things show up, I have counselors on like speed dial essentially. But one of the modalities that I do is lifespan integration. I've been doing it for almost 10 years. My counselor for lifespan integration, she calls me one of her OGs. But it's a really interesting modality where like essentially you are building a timeline of your life and rewiring your brain. But then the protocol that they have, and you should probably have Rachel Weinstein on your podcast about it because it's so interesting, is that you can also do the protocol around like certain specific situations. So like, let's say there's like an interaction or something like that happened, and it's just like activating you or triggering you. You can go do the protocol around that, and it allows you to rewire your brain and like look at it differently and settle it. And sometimes the way that I say it is like, it kind of feels like it's neutralizing like in my body. But as I do all these different things, like feed myself the right way, move myself the right way, do the different therapies and whatnot, which like I'm not doing it all the time, but sometimes, you know, you're going through a season in life where like you need that support more. It has a building blocks effect. So yeah, I love that. What is something that you're excited to create in the near future? That's a good question. I think for me right now, because of where I've been for the past 5 years, and I wasn't like too crazy intentional about it, I'm really, really lucky that I have a strong network. And so all my business over the past few years has been referral based. Like you guys know, I don't really post on LinkedIn. I once in a while maybe like kind of self-promote, but it's not something that I do all the time, and I actually don't like it. You know, you asked me to be on this podcast like 6 months ago, and I first said no.
And then she texted me, actually, yes, which I loved.
But I think it's about where's that next kind of stage for me as like Ishra Gill's strategy and like working with brands and really solidifying that positioning in terms of being that founder CEO partner. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to have you back on and you to tell us more about it. Yeah. Where can people find you online? Pretty much like nowhere, because as we know, I am not online because I have like I'm here to impart my wisdom and fuck off. I told you we were gonna laugh. I'm like, I can't take this seriously. I'm just gonna be laughing the whole time with you. I mean, in terms of finding me online, I guess ishragill.com for now. Hate to say it, maybe LinkedIn, but like my Instagram's private, so yeah. Got to get to know me. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the THINKSPACE podcast. Thank you for having me. Thank you.